Hey, remember this game? So, it's done. Done as in its content complete? No. Done as in all the graphics look nice and polished? Done as in it's now past the due date I originally set for myself? Correct. I won't get into that too much in this video, but the short of it is I didn't do as much work on this project as I'd hoped. Plans sort of fell apart, blah blah excuses. I might make another video talking more about that, but I also might not. I'm kinda just willing to try again with a new project. But let's cover what happened with this one. So, this is the main menu, and it has by far the highest production value of the whole game. Don't be fooled. It's all downhill from here. In this menu, you'll notice the Albuminous soundtrack, and you'll notice I finally made our Tailor character coruscate. He is now coruscating. How do I feel about this project? Okay, so clearly things didn't go exactly to plan, but that's nothing to be too disappointed over. Things never go quite according to plan. It helps me to feel okay about the final result when I kind of reframe it and remind myself that this whole thing was just for practice. You know, I had no intentions of putting this on Steam. It was all just kind of a learning experience. Speaking of learning, thanks for tuning into Stupid Solutions. Today we have a frustrating issue that boggled my mind for like 10 days. Honestly, I hesitate to even call it an issue. It's a lot more of an issue me. I'd hate to get you involved. But if you insist, I want the player to be able to draw on this image. Can you guess which part of it? If you sit over here, congrats, you're a game engine. If you sit over here, then you and I have a lot in common, because that was also my plan. I want the colored part only of this image to be the canvas. So it was easy enough to say, hey, don't let the player draw on a transparent pixel. The issue with this is that the brush size of the drawing tool can be enlarged so that it draws in a radius surrounding the clicked pixel, and if the player kind of edges the image here, whoops, suddenly we have more canvas. I initially tried putting a copy of the image just beneath the one that you were actually painting on. I thought this would work because then one version of the image would always have the true amount of transparent and opaque pixels, so it would know exactly where the boundaries are, but since the input is only checking for the pixel on the screen, like on the top layer, this ended up failing for the same reason as before. I still feel like this could work, but I don't know. Godot disagrees. Anyway, the solution began when I realized that in Godot there are two types of vector2 data types. Vector2s essentially store x and y values, so they're commonly used for positioning and movement in general. For example, I use vector2s to store coordinates of the image object. Every time this menu opens, there is a list being made of every black and white pixel in the 72 by 72 image. These are the valid underscore pixels, aka pixels you can draw on. Whenever the player clicks on a pixel, we take a look at the coordinates and check to see if they are on the list, and if they are, you can draw. Sounds foolproof! Doesn't work. Turns out, in Godot, vector2s exclusively store floating points, which contain decimals, and manage to somehow ignore any attempt to convert them into solid numbers, integers. Seriously, I tried everything. Vector2i's, on the other hand, are built for integers, and this finally ended up working. I just had to swap the vector2's for vector2i's. It just seems like a lot, you know? I just think there's gotta be a way for the game to look at this image, notice that like half of it is completely empty space, and then be able to kind of subtract this empty space from the image object. Comment down below if you think that making a coordinate list for every possible pixel that you can draw on is dumb or not, because honestly, it works. But you know what else I learned? Sudden tone shift alert! Skip ahead a couple minutes if you don't want to be really sad right now. I want to share a quick story that taught me to be more appreciative of all the little hidden stories people add to things in places that you would never expect. When I was choosing colors for the color selector in the editor, I chose all of my colors just by dragging on the color wheel, before realizing that it would be a lot easier for programming purposes to use the built-in color constants in script. I had used the HTML color constants before many times, mostly in other programming instances. Over the years, I've developed a consistent roster of my favorite colors to use, my favorite being Rebecca Purple. This one always stood out to me, not just because I like how it looked, but because all the other names are very intuitive in comparison. But who is Rebecca? And why is the prettiest shade of purple named after her? Today I decided to Google it. Eric Meyer is a man who has written 8 books advocating for CSS, cascading style sheets, which is, to quote Wikipedia, a technique for managing how HTML is displayed. So he's done years of work for this. This isn't the interesting part, it's just backstory. In my search for an explanation on Rebecca Purple, I ended up on his website. On June 7th, 2014, Eric Meyer's daughter Rebecca passed away. At her funeral, it was requested everyone wear purple, her favorite color. A proposal was offered to Eric to name a CSS color after her, Becca Purple. On his website, he wrote a response to this proposal. I did set one condition, that if the proposal is accepted, the official name be Rebecca Purple. A couple of weeks before she died, Rebecca informed us that she was about to be a big girl of 6 years old, and Becca was a baby name. Once she turned 6, she wanted everyone, not just me, to call her Rebecca, not Becca. She made it to 6. For almost 12 hours, she was 6. So Rebecca it is, and must be. Sudden tone shift alert. Alright, let me talk about the words in this game. I originally had a bunch of words for it to randomize from, but then I realized that I had to make like an actual, response to each of those words and like a criteria for it to match. It would not be hard to add more, but for this instance, there's only 3 words, and each word kind of demands that you use a different set of colors or a different amount of colors in order to meet the criteria, and if you meet the criteria, then you'll notice that your reputation meter goes up, except you might not notice it because it's gray on a gray background. Who did the art for this game? In the tailoring menu, there's a timer that goes for 15 seconds, except it's not telegraphed very well, so when time is up, the menu just kind of closes. In my script it says, any regrets? Yeah, for sure. I regret all the kind of events that were happening in my life that led to this just not being as cool as I wanted it to be. But like I said, I'm not gonna get hung up on that. I wish I did more, but I feel fine about it. I'm not going to lie awake about it at night. Unless I see a comment that's like, dude, this sucks, you should be ashamed of yourself. Then I might internalize it. But yeah, as long as there's no comments like that, I'll be completely fine. I also regret not updating my journal daily. Making development videos where everything that you talk about already happened like a month or 2 months in the past gets a little difficult and confusing, especially with limited notes to work with. So going forward, I'm definitely going to be really ensuring that I journal daily, talk about my thought processes, talk about my plans in the day, just so I don't have to keep working in retrospect, if that makes sense. I kind of touched on a lot of the things I wanted to do. The big one that was missing is the drag and drop item placer thing. It's not really anywhere close to where I want it to be. I wanted the player to be able to drag this anywhere onto the image and have it stay where the cursor placed it. Yeah, just couldn't figure that out, but it's alright. But anyway, I'm not trying to get too negative. I'm happy that this is done. I'm happy to be moving on. I'm happy that I'm making this video now. I'm thankful for people watching this stuff. And yeah, so recall that minute and a half of gameplay I showed you earlier. I let my family play this game, and I handed out a little survey along with it to kind of get their opinion and some feedback. So let's review. Alright, so I'm reviewing my sister's survey. So she chose the first emoji, she chose the calm emoji, which is good. If you could summarize your experience playing this game in 3 words, what would they be? Septial, spelt S-E-P-C-I-A-L, Yoki, and patriotic. Something you weren't expecting but were pleasantly surprised by. Godot drags into the mighty square. This is true. Something you were hoping for that you didn't see. Space. Yeah, I mean, it's Moonward Tailor, but there's not really any space. There's just kind of moon, but I don't know, the space is implied. If you could expand on the gameplay, make the bar neon green. Yeah, I agree. This would be a great change. Honestly, what was the dev thinking? Favorite character? No comment. Favorite gameplay thing? Dialogue options. Favorite music? Apparently, so the main menu song sounds like an egg drop competition. Gone awry, which I take as a compliment. Do you think the game lived up to its prompts? She gave a checkmark to Tailor and Telex, as well as Coruscate, and notes, not much moon or wards, also could have used more Wattpad. There's also a note at the bottom.
Let me be clear.
Do not contact me further. Thanks.
No lover.
Oh shit.
Michelle took the kids.